Okay, I got it. But the point was, the Clippers on the offensive side became Kawhi or bust, and he took, guess what he took them to? He took them to a 3-1 lead over Denver. He took them to a 15-point lead in the first closeout, a 19-point lead in the second closeout, and a 12-point lead in Game 7.
Well, he should be outside the top 10 if you can't close that.
Okay, he had a terrible fourth quarter in Game 7. He did not have a terrible fourth quarter in Game 6 or Game 5. I thought he was pretty good, but he was not good enough without a pure point guard to get home. They needed playoff Rondo to settle them, to order them into a situation where they could close the deal.
Can I ask you a question, Skip? You mentioned that Kawhi is 5 this year, and now Paul George is 20th.
20th.
Paul George wasn't 20th last year. They based his ranking this year on how bad he played in the playoffs in the bubble last year.
Okay.
So don't give me that, because Paul George was a top 10 player last year, right? So they had the number 2. They had the number 2.
Was he? I forget what he was. Was he that high?
Yeah.
Was he in the top 10?
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember, but I forgot to write it down.
But here's the thing, though. So you had 2 and another top 10 player, and you get bounced in the second. You should have been bounced in the first round. Had Kane Fitzgerald not inserted himself, because you love talking about officials, when you know what they did.
Okay, so what's more impressive? LeBron and AD going 1-2, or Kawhi going 5 with his next teammate all the way at 20?
Well, Skip,
it's more impressive to be 5th, because you're 5th alone. You're a solo act.
Skip, here's the thing. They're basing it on what happened last year and what happened in the playoffs. They're not just willy-nilly throwing these rankings together, and you saw what happened. You mentioned it. Your guy in a Game 7. Now, if that had Skip Bayless, Lord forbid, had that been LeBron James that had a 3-1 lead, and had a 15, a 19, and a 12-point lead at any point in time in the game, and then he had a fourth quarter like your guy had, you had to have a part. I couldn't come out here, because every day.
Circumstances. Don't be prisoner of the moment. Step back. What was happening? The bubble was happening. And what did Jared Dudley of the Los Angeles Lakers say a couple of weeks back on a podcast? Those boys, meaning the Clippers, did not want to be in that bubble. They did not. They were coming apart internally now that we hear what was happening. We had Montrez and Lou Williams. By the way, Lou Williams didn't even make the top 100 on this list, which is pretty shocking. But the point is, you had Montrez and Lou Williams and Pat Bev, to some extent, at the throats of the newcomers, Kawhi and Paul George. This and that. Why do you get this and we don't get that? They were coming apart at the seams, and their coach was quitting on them. Doc had had enough of them. He sat over there with his arms folded, watching like, you figure this out.
Well, Paul George quit on him. Did you see Paul George's performance in the bubble?
Was he not having problems in the bubble, Paul George?
But let me
Lord have mercy.
Here's the thing. The NBA said, we need a deadline for when the players are going to opt in or opt out. You can opt out. You will not get your salary, but we will ask you no questions. Trevor Ariza opted out. Now, he had some issues that he wanted to deal with. He opted out.
Yep.
Avery Bradley opted out. He had and some people had family issues that they didn't want to run the risk, so they opted out. Any Clipper that did not want to be there, they could have opted out. You cannot opt in, play, get the brakes beat up you, and say, we didn't want to be here. No, you wanted to be there. You got beat. You gagged. That's all that happened. They didn't want to be
there. Half of them didn't even go on time, and then they were going for bereavement issues. They were in and out. They had COVID issues.
Okay, no. Okay, those are no good. But I want to know, did Kawhi and Paul George, those are the two guys. Those are the guys that you say that last year was number 2 and one guy was in the top 10, and this year they're 5 and 20. Did they want to be there?
Paul George did not want to be there after he got there, because he said he was suffering all kinds of depression and cabin fever.
Well, Paul George don't like being in the playoffs. Have you watched him in the playoffs? Have you seen Paul George? Did you watch him in OKC?
Well, who named him George Paul?
Well, he named himself Playoff Pete.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was all about Kawhi Leonard.
But he left off 2 E's.
Now look what happened to your team.
What happened?
Your team stayed together because LeBron did a great job of leading them in the bubble. I told you, but that doesn't factor into this list.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
That doesn't make you the first
I'm sure
player.
It does.
Okay, so they get to a crucial Game 2 against the suddenly hot Nuggets, who were starting to feel themselves. And what happened at the end of Game 2? This was a case that Anthony Davis should have been one on this list.
Stop it, Skip.
Well, did you see what happened? Could we see that last play one more time? It's called for LeBron James. This is the turning point of the playoffs for the Lakers. LeBron did not move on a play called for him. Rondo said, I locked eyes with LeBron. He did not move. And AD had the presence of mind to loop all the way across the court, all the way over to get open near the sideline so Rondo could find somebody to inbounds to. And because he was channeling the late, great Kobe Bryant, and they were in the Mamba jerseys, AD said, Kobe, and ripped it and saved his bacon, saved LeBron, took him off the hook.
Skip,
Was that not the shot of the playoffs?
That was a big-time shot. But do you realize LeBron James finished 2 points short of leading every player in points, rebounds, and assists throughout the entirety of the playoffs? Let that sink in. AD had 2 more points than LeBron, or LeBron would have done something that nobody else will ever do. Lead the team. Lead the entire playoffs. And so for one game, you saying LeBron James shouldn't be the #1 player.
Okay, then how impressive was it that your Lakers wound up in the finals against the 5th seed from the East? It's the Miami Heat, the upstart Heat. And what happened in game 1? Their leading playoff scorer, Goran Dragic, was lost for the playoffs. Also, Bam, their MVP, was banged up and lost for a couple of games and came back and was a shell of himself. How easy, how much of a cakewalk was the finals for LeBron and AD? I mean, what did they prove? Little to nothing?
Well, here's the thing. What about the 2-time MVP that the Miami Heat knocked off? What about the
Well, you just said he's overrated.
Hold on. What about the Celtics? With that young, talented roster that they have, that they knocked off.
I've never been sold on them.
Well, you need to be sold.
Yeah.
Just like you're not sold on Goat James. But sooner or later, you're going to have to. But see, the problem is now, it's too late for you to buy in. Okay. You should have bought in like I did at the ground floor.
I'm not going to buy in.
Right, exactly.
There's way too much water under that bridge.
No. See, I bought in at the ground floor. And so now, that's why I'm invested. And look at me. Look at my return.
You had to grit your teeth through all those epic fails that LeBron suffered
Look at my investment.
Somehow beat the 5th-seeded Heat without 2 of their best players, playing 3 rookies high minutes. All 3 of the rookies were playing like 20 to 30 minutes a game. And I'm like, this is a joke.
But if you look at it, Skip, the bubble, we saw performances that we had never, ever seen before. We saw
aberrations.
We saw Donovan Mitchell score the 3rd most playoff points in NBA history.
Okay. All right. And one guy was not in the bubble, out of sight, out of mind, along with Steph and Clay, out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
But the best player on the planet has not been playing for a year, and that is Kevin Durant. To me, it's a joke to rank him 6th on this list because he's the best player.
Skip, we don't
know because he's coming off Achilles. I got it. But if he's 98%, which I believe he will be, of what, and again, he's not the quickest guy to start with, or he doesn't depend on his leaping ability.
That jumper's still going to be nice.
It's still going to be nice, and it's still going to work, and he's still going to be the best mid-range jump shooter since that guy up in Chicago that LeBron's still trying to chase.
We got past him.
Yeah, you got past him. Kevin Durant will soon show you he's still the best player on the planet. The last time we saw him, he was coming off back-to-back finals MVPs, and he came back probably prematurely for Game 5 at Toronto 2 finals ago. And what did he do? He played 12 minutes and scored, or was it, no, 11 minutes and scored 12 points.
Yes.
And he made 3 out of 3 from 3, and it felt like he was going to steal the MVP for a 3rd straight year.
Yes.
And then you know what happened.
Yes.
It went completely, and he went out of sight, out of mind. I'm sorry, he's better than the 6th player. That's just an Achilles ranking right there.
Exactly. And I think some of those, we're going to talk about James Harden, him being 9th, a guy that's finished in the top 5 MVP, I mean, top 3 for like 3 or 4 of the last 5 years.
He was the biggest fall on this.
Right.
But he fell from, what, 4 to 9?
Right, the uncertainty.
That's wrong.
Kawhi Leonard, they got that one right. He might have should have been, after that performance, he should have been out. He should have been what Kevin, he should have been 9th.
9th?
He should have been 9th.
When he had his team positioned as the favorite going into the playoffs and they were crushing the Denver Nuggets, and you say he should fall?
Hold on. I love how you preface that. Being the great English major that you were, you said were. They were in position. You didn't say they finished the task. I noticed that you didn't say that. So you're very good with that English language.
They had internal strife.
Hey, whoa.
And they were looking.
He was a part of it.
They were looking ahead to the team they knew they could beat They were ready to come out of the basement, up into the spotlight, and Denver happened. And by the way, Denver's got, what, Jokic is 10th on this list, and then Jamal in the top, isn't he 21?
That's ridiculous. He's ridiculous. Because we're going to talk about him and how low they got him ranked, which is utterly ridiculous.
Which way? Meaning?
He's too low.
He should be higher.
Yes.
What is he, 21?
Yeah, 21, 22, something like
22, I believe he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how about your man Luka at 4th?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Hold on.
What has he done to be ranked 4th on this list?
Isn't he the youngest all-NBA player?
Wait, a guy who can't shoot a lick and doesn't play a lick of defense?
You know what? A guy that couldn't shoot against a team full of dogs, all them defensive stoppers, he averaged 31, 10, and 9.
Yeah, and he made a walk-off shot. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And up to that point, last season, he was 0 for 10 on last-second shots. 0 for 10? And he's ranked 4th?
And had Kane Fitzgerald not inserted himself and fouled out Porzingis, you would have lost game 2. You would have lost the finals.
Yeah.
I mean, the first round, which would have been an epic collapse.
Those boys did not want to be in that bubble. You could see it.
Because they didn't want to see us.
Yep.
They didn't want to see us, Skip. You know that.
So you got a big asterisk besides your championship. It was a bubble championship. And in the end, off that to the victor go these